Alrighty. Alrighty, guys, we should be live any second now. Alright, we're good to go. Audio looks good. Just drop your name in the chat real quick or a quick comment. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. So today we will be covering this kind of really cool fluid simulation. This is basically going to involve a path of some sort, and we'll be able to make our fluid follow the path seamlessly. This is like a really fun and quick, easy thing to do. Honestly, the tutorial is probably going to take less than 5 minutes, but I'm going to show you guys some really cool techniques on kind of how I put this render together. It's pretty fun, right? I love fluid physics. You guys know that most of the stuff that I cover involves physics, and I'll just give a quick shout out if you want to learn more about these types of physics simulations. CG Cookie does have the fundamentals of physics as well as their core course, and that'll be in the description below. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, there's so much more than just physics. But yeah, let's go ahead and hop right into this, guys. I'm going to go over the current Blender project. I'm also live on Instagram right now. This is our current project, so you can see everything's kind of in real time here. We're using cycles. I'm going to head over to the solid view here, and let's just go ahead and play this back. So this is basically what we're creating. Basically, we have a path that we've created, and we have our fluid following a path. We're going to be using some force fields, and everything is built into Blender completely free. So let's go ahead and start a brand new document here. File, new, general. I'll save this one, that's fine. If you guys notice, I'm just going to delete everything in my scene here. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a curve. So I'm going to add a circle curve into our scene. And we're going to make this, we can keep this as a circle, but I'm going to make this into an infinity symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and tab into edit mode here. And you can see we have our 4 points. We can drag them around however we see fit. In this case, what I want to do is I want to turn on my snapping. So I'm going to turn on my magnetic snapping up here. I'm going to go to my top-down view. I'm going to go ahead and take this point up here and press G to move it. And we're going to go ahead and move it until it's just about lined up with our other point. So you can see if we zoom in here, we're kind of creating this infinity shape, right? And then I'll just go ahead and take my bottom point. I'll move it along this way. And that looks good. So just make sure you guys line this up with the grid. Once you do, you'll have your infinity shape. I'll go ahead and tab out of edit mode, and you can see we have our really nice infinity symbol here. Another thing I'm going to do before we move forward is I'm going to go to my data properties for my path, and I'm just going to raise the resolution to about 50 for the render and the preview. And now we'll have a nice smooth Bezier curve to follow. So now that we have our curve to follow, let's start by adding our liquid. Let's go ahead and click on Add Mesh Cube, and we'll just scale our cube down a bit. That's fine. And now we're going to just go to Object, Quick Effects, Quick Liquid, just to kind of get a liquid simulation going here, just to make sure everything's working properly. Press play, and we are good to go. We have our liquid simulation. Now we're going to click on our liquid. We're going to head over to our domain properties on the right. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and instead of replay, we're actually going to choose all, and that's going to reset the simulation, which is exactly what we want. And then for our end frame, I'll just choose 100, keep it simple. And we're going to scale everything down. So basically what we want is we want to have a flow object that flows into our path, and then the domain will just be around everything else. So this outer box is our domain, which is basically where the simulation takes place. I'm going to scale that a little bit. I'm also going to turn off snapping at this point. This just has to be around your infinity symbol. It really doesn't matter like how big it is, but I like to scale it down because it tends to make the simulation go smoother and quicker. I'll scale down our cube. Now the cube itself is going to be what emits the water or the liquid. I'm going to go ahead and move it so it's about the start of our path right here, just to highlight everything. Again, you guys can put this wherever you want your fluid to be emulating from. Just go ahead and move your cube wherever you want that to be. Right now it's set to geometry, which means it would just fall right as like a liquid box. We want it to be pushing water out of the box. So we want to change geometry to inflow, and now it'll flow just like a faucet would. And really there's only a couple more steps. We're going to click on our Bezier curve here. We're going to add a force field simulation. Now instead of the shape being point, we're going to change that to curve. And then what that'll allow us to do is it will actually follow, the force field will follow the curve. Now we don't want to push away, that's a positive value. We want to pull into the curve. So we'll put our strength at -5, which is going to pull things towards the curve and around the curve. For our flow, I'll just set that to 1. I found that that value works best. And other than that, we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and do a quick test bake and see how it looks. Now, right now we're at resolution 32, so it's kind of low in terms of quality. But let's go ahead and bake this, just make sure everything's working properly. And if I press play, you can see that our fluid is following our system here, which is going to be at 100 frames, so I'll adjust that as well. If we press play, we can just loop through this. That's really it. That's the tutorial. But everything from this point forward, we're going to go over like shading, how to make this more high quality, how to add some turbulence, and I'll talk about how you would use this for a logo as well. So if you only needed this part for the tutorial, you're good to go. I'll see you guys later. If not, stick around because we'll be here for another 50 minutes or so. All right, so we have our fluid clearly following, which is great. All right, that's exactly what we wanted. The next step is let's go ahead and bump up the quality here. Right now, I mean, this looks really good, but we wanted this to be super high quality. So I'm going to go ahead and click free all under my cache settings, and I'm going to scroll up. Right now, we're at about 32. Let's bump this up to 150. Let's go ahead and click bake all. And now you see the bake is going to take a little bit longer. It's about 2-3% right now. It's pushing along. So now what we're going to do is you can see in the corner, I think you can see this right here, that little box is the size of each particle for our simulation now. So this will take a little bit longer. So go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat while we wait for this. And then right after this, we're going to go right into our material settings, okay? Make sure nobody has... Yep, someone said, are we uploading this on YouTube? Yep, this will be on CG Cookies YouTube channel. So we're going to go ahead and wait for this to process a little bit. It's about a third of the way through, so thank you for your patience. Jason says, hi. Jason, how are you doing? If you guys have any questions so far about the physics simulation, let me know. As soon as this is done baking, we're going to get right into materials, lighting, and kind of how to make this thing look really interesting. Flesh Kuru says, hi. Hello, how are you? Any other questions in the chat while we're waiting? And again, thank you guys for your patience. Awesome. All right. All right, so we're at about frame, I think I'll stop at about frame 70 and we'll just kind of go from there just because I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long here. Oh, we do have a question. Does it also work with smoke and fire flows? I'm not sure. It'll probably work with smoke, fire, I'm not sure. We'll try smoke a little bit later if we have time, Jason. What about logos? Are they more complicated? We're going to go over logos next after we get into some render settings here. All right, we're at about frame 75. I'm going to press escape and let's go ahead and play this back. I'll just make our end frame 75. Let's play this simulation back. As you can see, we have a much more detailed simulation here. This looks really, really good. Now, one of the things to consider is that your fluid will keep accumulating. One way to stop that from having the fluid to keep building up, you can just set it to like emulate fluid for maybe the first 5 or 10 frames. And then after that, it'll keep circulating the fluid throughout the path. Let's take a look at this detail level here. And this looks really good. And this is only 150. I mean, I've baked things up to 500, 600 resolution. But this looks pretty good for what we're going to do today. So I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick, just so we have it saved. I'll go ahead and give this a really good name right here. That looks good. Yep, just make sure you name your project nicely. Go ahead and click on save. And then we're going to head over to our rendered view. Now, in rendered view, we don't really have much of an environment here, so you can't really see anything. I'm going to head over to my world settings, click this little dot right here, click on environment texture, and then I will open up a brand new environment texture. I'll just pick this one. This one's fine. I use this one a lot. It's just got some really nice contrast to it. So let's go ahead and start giving this some shading and some lighting. So far, what I want to do though is I do want to hide my cube, right? That's our initial object. Now you can see right here, you can kind of see the shape of the cube right there. That's because that's where the fluid's emulating from. If you don't want to see that, you can change the type of mesh that the fluid is emulating from. You can use a sphere. It really doesn't matter as long as it's something that you're happy with. It's your project, so it's totally up to you. So I'm going to add a plane in here. I'm just going to give this like a nice black background. We can go into some shading later. I'll bring this below our object. Now, make sure when you guys add your objects around your liquid that it's not touching the liquid. And here's why. If you are touching the liquid, notice how it's going to completely break the shader, right? So when you have objects that are clipping, it can mess up the way that your shading looks. All right, let's click on our infinity symbol here. I'm going to go to a cool frame. I feel like this looks like kind of a cool frame here. And I'm going to go ahead and give this glass BSDF like a slight blue tint. I think that looks pretty cool. Now, here's the part where you can kind of decide like which angle of your lighting works best for your scene. Me personally, I like to have like some really strong highlights and then some darker shadowy areas. So like this angle, I'll just usually like rotate around my scene to find an angle that works good. I feel like this angle looks really nice here. So I'm going to try to place my camera in that area. I'll head back to solid view, go to add camera. I'll just go ahead and place my camera like somewhere over here. And then I'll snap to my camera view real quick. And while I'm in my camera view, I'll press G to move my camera around. Go ahead and rotate a little bit here. That looks good. I'll scale my plane up. And then I'm also going to change my output properties. So my output properties are 1920. I'll make my Y 1080. So we have a nice little YouTube thumbnail here. And I'm also going to change my camera type down here in the camera settings to orthographic, which is going to allow us to have like this really nice perspective here. And so far, this is looking really nice. Another thing I do, and you guys probably already knew this was coming, I'm going to add some depth of field just because I think it looks really nice and it really sells the render a little bit more. I'm going to give this a quick save and then I'm going to check depth of field. You'll notice everything gets blurry. We either need to have a focus object or we can adjust this, fine-tune this focus distance ourselves. I will usually take this focus distance and I will adjust it myself. You can see that things are starting to come into focus now. That looks pretty good. I'll give us an f-stop of about 8 so that we have some slightly blurry edges, but we also can see that the liquid is pretty clear in the middle there. Like if you zoom in, you can see that we have some blurriness on the outside, but towards the inside, we can really see that nice focal point there. From this point, it's all just shading and deciding what you want your scene to look like. So I'm pretty happy with this so far. I'll probably bump up the contrast a little bit. So I'll go back to my render settings here. I'll go to color management and I'll probably just bump this up to high contrast. I think that looks pretty nice, and maybe bump the exposure up just a little bit. My background, I'm not too happy with this background, this plane underneath, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit, and then I'm going to go over to my shading properties, okay, and I'm going to give this a new material, which it already has. I'll just go ahead and add some roughness and a bump node. So let's go ahead and add a bump node here. Go ahead and plug that into the normal, and then we're going to plug in a noise texture here, and I'll plug in the FAC to the height, just like that. And you can see we already have a bumpy surface. Now what we want to do is we want to scale this up a lot. I'll scale this up to like 400, see what that looks like. And you can start to see that the surface now has this really nice bumpy material just like that, which is really nice. I'll try to bump this up maybe a little bit more, maybe 600, maybe turn the strength down to 0.5. And then I'm going to mess around with the metallic and the roughness a little bit. I think that looks nice. It kind of just breaks up the surface a little bit more, makes it look a little bit more natural. And if you really want to, you could bump this up to like 800. It really depends on the level of detail that you're looking for. But I think this looks really nice so far. The only other thing I'd probably change is if you wanted to add some color variation to your liquid, you could. Overall, I think this looks really nice. And if we play this back, it'll look like this. It's going to be a little choppy on the screen, but you can see the liquid starts to form here. It goes all the way around the infinity loop here, and it just looks really nice. Now we have a couple of questions. Let me go ahead and address those really quickly so we don't skip over those. Can you export the simulation to use in another project? I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. It would not surprise me if you could, but you might have to do it like frame by frame or an FBX sequence. Is there any way to overcome clipping shading issues? I think it wasn't even an abstract animation. It's 90% collide with another object in a scene. Just makes more common sense and believability. Yeah, so if you do run into any shading issues, always make sure to shade smooth. That's one thing. Another thing to do in your render properties over here, take a look at your light paths. A lot of people overlook this. I just bump all mine up to like 20 because my computer can handle it. If yours can't, just bump everything up to 10. That usually takes care of any shading issues, especially with clipping, or like sometimes like certain parts of your liquid might be black. But another thing to consider is lighting. Like if I turn off this plane, right, everything's going to look completely different. And this might be the look that you're going for, right? This is with no background, or we're just really using our HDRI. Now remember, with orthographic cameras, it can't really see the HDRI the same way that a perspective camera can. So right now you can see that the background is just one solid color. If I change this back to a perspective camera, now we can see the background again, right? So if you really want to see that background, don't use orthographic. You won't be able to see through to that background. This looks nice too. I mean, like I'd render this too. This looks fine. We can go through and check all the frames. This looks really, really fun and cool. Another thing we can do to modify this is we could add a turbulence force field, but I do want to move forward and show you guys how this would work with a logo. Gabriel says, hey, your content has been a huge inspiration to my Blender intellectual journey. That's awesome to hear. I am super happy to hear that, Gabriel. That's fantastic. Are you working on any fun projects that you could share with us right now? All right, let's go ahead, move forward, guys. I'm going to show you how we would do this, the exact same thing with a logo. So right now, as sad as this is, I'm going to delete this bake. So I'm going to go over to my domain settings. I'm going to click free all, which is going to free up all of that stored information. And then I'll switch to my X-ray view. And I think I'm going to hide the domain for right now so that we can create a new path. So again, this is our original path. I'm just going to hide this path. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add an image in here. So we need an image reference, and we're going to trace it to create our own custom path. So let me go over to my downloads and see if I can find some kind of logo that we could work with here. Oh, look, the Blender logo. That might be a good one to work with. Yeah, let's just go ahead and work with the Blender logo here. All right, so let me go ahead and reset all of the... Not sure why it imported like that. I'll reset all of the properties here. So we have our Blender logo, right? Now, if you have an SVG that's already path-based, you can utilize that. If not, you're going to have to manually trace something, right? So this is how I would go about doing it. I would hold on to my image right there. I would add a new curve. I'll add a regular Bezier curve for now, and I'll go ahead and move this up a little bit. And then I'll go to my top-down view, and I'm basically just going to try to copy the way that this looks. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'll start rotating things. Let's just start up here. Again, I'm just going to scale it down. When I rotate, I'm using the R shortcut to do that. Now, you're probably saying, well, I only have 2 points right here on my path. How do I create more points? Well, go ahead and click on one that is on the end of the path, and then just press E to extrude, and now you'll have a new point to work with. And this isn't going to be perfect, so I'm going to really go through this quickly so I can show you how this works. I'm just going to keep extruding, rotating, scaling, and I'm going to try to make this the best that I can. Let's go ahead and do this. Again, I am really going quick here. Like, if I really wanted to, I could really take my time with this and make this really, really nice. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to go really quickly here. All right, you can see that I'm just outlining this the way that I think it looks best. You guys can spend as much time as you possibly want on this. So right here, this is where you might run into a problem, right, with a more complex logo. I'm just going to outline the basic chunks of the logo, not every individual path. I'm going to go back up here. I'm just going to continue extruding. Now, right here, you'll notice the path looks kind of weird, right? I'm okay with that because I know the liquid's going to collide in a way that makes it still smooth out. So I'm just going to keep going here. This part you might need to straighten out a little bit, right? If you need to highlight things, rotate them. I'm going to extrude again, re-extrude here. Okay, so here's the part you're probably all wondering, like, how do you reconnect the path? If you hold shift and you highlight both, you can press F and they will connect. You'll notice though now everything's kind of warped, so you might have to scale this down, scale this one down. Now again, this is really crude, right? If you look, this path is kind of awful, but it should still work. So let's try it out. Let's see if we can make this work. Again, looks pretty bad, right? But let's see if we can make it work. Force field, we'll add our force field to our curve. We'll change this to curve. Strength, again, we'll use -5. Flow, we'll keep that at 1. Let's turn our domain back on so we can see it. And let's move our curve into our domain because everything needs to be contained within the domain area. All right, now next thing we're going to need to do, I'm going to bump this resolution back down to 50 so that we can kind of see our results a little bit quicker. I'm going to click on Bake All and let's just see what happens here. All right, let's see if this actually follows the path. It looks like it is. It's going a little slow here. Oh, one thing I forgot to do. We have to move our cube, which is our object that emulates everything. So let's move our cube to start up here in the corner of the Blender logo, and then we'll go from there. And don't worry, guys. I know you're probably dropping questions in the chat. I will address those as soon as I can. I promise. All right, let's see how this looks. All right, look. Now it's going somewhere here. Okay, here's how I know it's working. Right here, you can kind of see it's diving into all the different parts of the curve. I guess let's try to go out to frame 200 and let's bump the resolution up to like 80. Because sometimes the resolution is usually the answer to all of our questions if we're having issues with a fluid simulation path. The better that your path is, usually the better everything's going to go. I probably could have started with a curved path or just like a circular path, and that probably could have worked fine too. All right, let's go ahead and stop it there. Let's see how it looks now. Okay, it's a little sloppy, but you get the idea. Same concept. It's not perfect. This one, you may have to adjust on your own. You can see that like when you have overlapping areas in the curve, we're going to get some weird fluid like errors, if you will. But either way, it still works. You guys can experiment with this on your own. I usually don't use this for logos. I used this a while back for one of my own tutorials, and I really wanted to share it with you guys. So let's go ahead and keep doing some liquid stuff. This curve is atrocious, so that's probably why it's not working well. Again, I mean, look at this thing. This thing looks awful. So, yeah, I'm a little ashamed of it, actually. You could use the Blender SVG, which I'm sure we can get online, and you can see what you could get out of that. Other than that, you're probably going to be better off tracing it on your own. I am going to delete that, and I'm going to reset this so that I can answer any questions you guys have. What about logos? Are they more complicated? Yep, we went over that. How can you export the simulation? I have not practiced very much at all high detail rendering and modeling, but instead took the skill in the realm of 3D printing. Nice. You can definitely just bake the simulation and mesh cache. Yep, I've heard of that too. Trace a vertex and convert it to a curve. You could, that's another option. You could definitely try that. Again, this is like, I love Blender because a lot of Blender is just about experimenting, right? Let's go back to my original file. All right, so this is the original file. Again, I just want to play this back while I answer some of your questions. Axial flux generator. That sounds really cool. Bake the keyframe. Yep. So, oh yeah, with when we talk about organic shapes too, like I kind of want to discuss this real quick. You can kind of see how the fluid is like a bit choppy here, but I really think that looks cool. And if you wanted it to be even more choppy, like I said earlier, you can add a turbulence force field if you'd like to. You don't have to, but you can, right? That's another thing you can do to kind of enhance that. All right. I am gonna go over some any chance of Doritos. Always a chance of Doritos, Omar. Always a chance. All right, I'm going to go over another really cool fluid technique with you guys real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just create a completely new document. I'm just going to delete everything as usual. I always love starting from scratch. Let's go ahead and play around with force fields a little bit more. I think a lot of people are really interested in physics anyway. This is based on a tutorial that I had a while ago on my own Kenny Phases channel. So let's go ahead and go over it. I have a cube. I'm going to add some quick effects to it, quick liquid. And right away, we have our liquid, which is super awesome. Now, one of the key things here with fluid dynamics, and I think I forgot this before, we want to turn off gravity. I think I missed that part on the original part of the tutorial. That's totally my fault. In your gravity settings over here, just set that last value, that Z value to 0. Before it pulls down at negative 9.8 meters a second squared, we want to go ahead and combat that, and we don't want it to do anything, right? So now when we press play, nothing happens because there's no gravity, there's no forces. But that's okay because we can add a force field. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to add a force field here. I'll just add a regular force field. I'll pull this down right here, and then I'll just make this negative 10. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and play this back. And now you can see, and this is really fun, look at the way, and I didn't expect this to be this quick real time. Look at the way that the force field kind of like grabs onto this fluid. How cool is that? One of my favorite things to do is mess around with fluid simulations. It just really is. So what you could do here is you could simulate something that would be on the International Space Station. Maybe you want to know how a fluid might react in outer space. This isn't necessarily physically accurate, but it's good enough for me, right? This looks cool. How awesome is that? Now, here's the fun part. You can have two force fields that are kind of fighting each other, right? Maybe I have a force field here. I have one right there. And now look, they're kind of fighting each other, right? They're fighting back and forth. I used to do this stuff all the time where I would play around with these force fields. Let's just make this top force field a little bit stronger. We'll do negative 30. And the bottom one's negative 10. Now you can see it really is only focused on this top force field. I'm wondering if we move this. Okay, it won't happen in real time. But look, you can see how it's hugging the side of the wall of this domain. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with that as well, which is super awesome. It's really cool because you can see this particle overlay as well, so you can kind of see where the particles are headed. Very fun. All right, let's go over a couple more examples. Again, this is just me trying to show you guys cool things that you can do with liquids. One of my favorite things that I've been experimenting a lot lately with is aerodynamics and how things react based on their design and their shape and the complexity of their physics properties. So what we can do now is I'll just delete everything again. Let's go ahead and just add in a sphere. All right, this sphere will just be our object that fluid will flow around. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in a cube. Oops, he's not a plane. A cube. And we'll go ahead and give that a quick effect, quick liquid. Okay, now from here, I'll go to my cache settings and I'll actually change this back to all. I'll just make the end frame 100. And then our domain, again, guys, is the box on the outside. I'm going to scale that down on the X a lot. And then let's just adjust our resolution to like 50. And let's also take our flow object, which is this. We'll move it above our sphere. Okay. And we'll go ahead and set that to inflow so that it flows like a faucet. And then the last thing we need to do is click on our sphere and give that a fluid type effector so that it's affected by our fluid. And that should be it. We're going to go ahead and bake. Let's click bake and let's just see what happens. And nothing happens. And I wonder why. Let's click free all and let's take a look. We may have to apply our scale. Let's see. You know what? I'll bump my resolution up to 100. Almost always it's like a resolution problem. Wait a minute. I know the problem. Oh, this is actually a great thing to point out real quick because I love pointing out my own mistakes because I make them probably more than anybody. Does everybody see that small box in the middle? That is not supposed to be outside of our domain, and that's the problem. So I'll go ahead and I deleted my bake. I will scale this down so that it fits inside of our box. And now we shouldn't have any issues. When something is outside of the domain's like, sorry, dude, I've never seen that object in my life, right? So that's just kind of what happens there. All right, now I'm pretty positive this should work. So let's see. And it still doesn't work. It's okay. Let's troubleshoot. We have an inflow object. Our particle size should be small enough. Ooh. Our sphere is somewhat out of the domain. Shouldn't be a huge issue. Usually it's not. Let me double check. Surface thickness, we'll put that to 1 and see if that helps. You know what? Let's move this outside of the domain and let's see if it works at all with object flow. All right, hold on. I know what's going on here. I just solved it. Thank you. Someone said it. So, and this is another reason why I probably should have just started a new project. Gravity. We need gravity. And I'm actually going to make our gravity -20 so that it pulls the liquid down very fast. Again, all parts need to be working properly for this to work. Where are we at here? Okay, now it should work. Bake all. Crossing my fingers. All right, so I can tell it's working because the bake is taking longer. There we go. So this is what it looks like right now. Now, one of the reasons I love this is because you've probably seen those Formula One dragsters, right, in a smoke tunnel, where the smoke is traveling like around that object. I've always just really been interested in the way that works, and you'll notice that liquid sort of hugs the object in a similar way, which is really fun. So let's bake this again, but this time let's put this in the center. Let's take these, right, and pretend that these are going to be our smoke lines. Let's just pretend there's 3, just like that. Okay, now let's go ahead and bake this and let's see what it looks like. And again, I just like this stuff because I find it interesting. After this, we will test out one of our user suggestions, which was going to be our smoke property. So we're going to see if our force field flow path works with smoke, which I don't see why it wouldn't, right? Like everything is affected by force fields that is a part of the physics world in Blender. All right, let's go ahead and play this back. Really interesting. And look, it's filling up. So here's like what I find interesting is this right here, right? How the fluid flows around the object, and like you can kind of see like where the fluid builds up and kind of where it has more or less resistance. I just find this stuff super interesting. And the reason this is baking so quickly is because the domain is so slimmed down that it's not really worried about anything else that's happening besides what's in the domain. And it's kind of cool, right? You could make this like a little encapsulated area. Let's see what this looks like in rendered view. And then we'll try, and then I promise we'll try smoke, guys. Let me just give this a little bit of lighting here. How fun is that? Let's give this like a color here. There we go. That is so cool. Reminds me of one of those like desktop weighted toys that you can, where you like flip it around and there's a little boat. Everybody know what I'm talking about? There, it's like it's got like oil and then it's got like another weird density liquid in there that they don't mix together, but the boat is like always upright. Reminds me of one of those things. All right, let me answer the questions and then we'll go right into our smoke simulation here. You can link baked object. Yep, that sounds right. Sounds like you guys know more about it than I do. Splash effect on an object. That's really easy. We can go over that. The domain is too small. Never had an experience with RealFlow plugin, but Blender's fluid simulation looks CGI-ish, mostly because small liquids look like chop mesh. Right, and another thing that can fix that, guys, you got motion blur, right? That's going to help a little bit. You can add a subdiv surface. You can raise your resolution. And there's also things like Flip Fluids, which is a paid add-on. I think it's like 50 or 60 bucks. Sold more times than I can even count. But yeah, I mean, this is CGI, right? It's not going to look 100% real. It's really difficult to make something look real using a computer-generated program, right? We're getting better and better every day, but unfortunately, it's free, right? This is a free program. Like, don't expect realistic results unless you buy maybe a few plugins or you like really, really know what you're doing with like post-compositing and things like that. Is there a way to make it look more like water? The best way to make it look like water is to give it an IOR of 1.33. And then if you want, you can find a custom shader online to help with that refraction and kind of like that lens distorted view. Or you can put air bubbles in it. There's a lot of different things you can do. I won't be covering it right now. Let's go ahead and go into a new project. I'm not going to save that one because I don't need it. And let's try our smoke simulation. Let's add in a cube. We'll go to Object, Quick Effects. We'll do Quick Smoke. All right. Let's go ahead and play this. And you can see that our smoke is rising, which is great. Now let's go ahead and just add a simple force field and let's see if it works. I am going to, first of all, though, scale down my smoke like emulator there. And then let's go ahead and just add in, I'll just add in a curve circle. We'll just keep it simple. I will turn off gravity, even though gravity really won't affect our smoke because smoke rises. And let's give this a force field with a negative value of 5 and a flow of 1. All right, so as you can see, nothing's happening. And that is because we are going to have to switch this to all. We'll make this frame 80. That's fine. Let's bake it and let's see what happens. And it doesn't want to do anything. All right, let's find out why. Well, first of all, let's scale this down a little bit. We are, okay, we have gas, good. Flow, inflow. Let's scale this up. Let's do everything we did in the tutorial previously. I'm just going to move some things around here. Make sure everything's inside our domain. And let's bake it one more time and see what's happening here. A lot of this, half of Blender for me is troubleshooting here. Doesn't want to do anything here. All right, let's go ahead and click on our flow source and let's look at our settings. Inflow, yep. Let's do let's add an initial velocity. See if that helps at all. Helps push things along. Use flow, inflow, yep. Resolution. Let's try 100. Let's bump that up too. And let's click on Bake All. I did add my force field to my curve. Oh, you know what I didn't do though? I didn't change it to curve. That's what I didn't do. Boom, another mistake made. That's 2 out of 3. One more and I'm done. CG Cookie's never gonna let me live stream again. You've been tinkering with smoke simulations. That's awesome. Heat is affected by gravity. Oh, here we go. Oh, look at this. Woo! Looks good. All right, so this is really cool. Let's go to, this is actually, see, like, now that's a whole nother tutorial right there. But let's go ahead and play this back and talk about it. So our smoke's moving. I'm going to get rid of that initial velocity because we don't really need that anymore. It turns out it was just a setting that I was missing. But this is really promising because now we can start to think about, like, if we want to reveal a logo, we can reveal it with liquid, smoke, particles, maybe fire. I don't see why fire, like, wouldn't work. But this is really interesting, and this is only a very low setting in terms of resolution. Let's bump this up to 200. I will give this a quick save, and I'll go ahead and name this something very useful that I'll 100% remember. Oh, I missed a letter. Yeah, we're good. And let's go ahead and bake this and see what we get. Gravity and temperature tightly connected. He said, I love some sciences in my blender. Yeah, you can't have a blender without science, right? And I always tell people that I use Blender, and they're like, that's cool, man. Like, I have one in my kitchen too. And I'm like, you know, you just don't get it. All right, let's only let this bake out to frame 20 because this is going to take a lot longer with a resolution of 200. This is really taking a while. Smoke simulations take forever. I remember when I first started to mess around with them, I was like, this sucks. All right, let's just stop it there. I just want to see how this looks. Much more detailed. Look at that. Very cool. Let's see what we're getting in rendered view. Oh, there we go. That looks nice. Now, one of the things a lot of people don't talk about too is like shading with the with your smoke, right? So let's go ahead and just add some lighting in here. Actually, for this one, I'm not going to add an HDRI. I'm just going to add an area light. Move this up so we can kind of see our smoke a little bit more. And I'm going to make our area light like 1,000 right here. There we go. And then for our smoke, we'll click on our smoke domain. It should automatically give you a shader for that, which is going to be on our right. Key value here is density. That's going to be, well, how dense your smoke is, right? So right now we're at 5. If I drop it down to 1, you can kind of see through it a little bit. If I bump this up to like 100 though, now we have this very thick smoke, right? Something that you might see like if someone's vaping and they like blow out the smoke from their vape, like you might see a smoke cloud like that, right? So this is kind of like when you see like very thick smoke, this is how people are achieving that effect right here, which is super awesome. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Now that we know how to simulate smoke like this, let's go ahead and mess around with some settings real quick. Let's go ahead and delete our bake, as much as it hurts me. So does it hurt anybody else? Because like when I delete my bake, I'm like hurts my heart. You know what I mean? Like all that hard work that the computer had to do, and we're just destroying it. I'm going to turn on snapping. Let's just make our let's make our shape again. Okay. Oh, this one doesn't look as good. What's going on here? Wow, this looks... Why does this one look so different? Hold on, let me go back. Oh, because I brought this one down here. That's right. Okay. I think that's right. Okay, that looks right. That looked really bad, though. Am I right? There we go. All right, there's our shape. Now let's see what the smoke wants to do this time. Oh, I'm going to turn off snapping. Don't ever forget to turn off snapping because otherwise you'll just like drive yourself crazy. Also, remember with the domain, I'm going to collapse this down a bunch because I want my domain to like not take up much space, only the space that I need it to take up. Then let's drop this down to 150 and let's go ahead and bake this out while we have a little chat here and I check on the comments. Do you know what defines simulation performance? CPU thread quantity or CPU speed in gigahertz? No idea, Jason. I'm so sorry, but I don't know. You know what, though? I'm pretty sure on blender.org there is like a performance like scale or something like that for like benchmarks. So you might be able to find that information there. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer your question better, Jason, but unfortunately I don't know. All right, here we go. Oh, our bake is almost done. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and play this back. Whoa! I'm sorry, but that was cool. That was awesome. Anybody else think that was awesome? Let's play that back like one more time. Might be onto something here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bump down the density to like 30. Oops, 30. That's a little bit better. And let's take our area light, move it down, scale it up. Which way is this point? Oh, it's pointing down. I'm like, why can't I see anything? All right, we'll put it at negative 180, whatever. I just put it at negative 1890. And let's slim it down. There's something I want to show you guys if it lets me. Let's slim it down like this, move it up, and let's bring it like kind of like this way. And let's go ahead and change the spread. So the spread, one of the things people don't talk about a lot is the spread of the light. And that's kind of like the angle that the light is getting shot out at. And there's some really interesting things you can do if you like take the light and you place it properly. Like this here looks pretty cool. Maybe we can make it blue. Again, like going back to lighting and shading, there's just so many things that I enjoy playing around with to get the desired look. And maybe this isn't the look that you're going for, but I think that's awesome. I think that turned out really, really cool. So my PC specs. Yep. So I am running a GeForce RTX. Oh my gosh, what is it? I forget. I gotta look. Oh yeah, 3070 Ti. I almost forgot because I haven't said this in a while. 3070 Ti, 2 TB hard drive, 124 gigs of RAM, and I think I have like an i9 chip in there. I totally forget. I built the PC, so I should know all this, but all my PC specs are on my Instagram as well. Unfortunately, I saw some Blender Topics says that it doesn't use CPU performance. Blender is a huge beast, and it takes time to tame it. Have fun. Yep. It would be cool to create a smoke sim that collides with a hidden object. How can that be done? Well, let's go ahead and do it. Because we can. Because this is Blender and anything's achievable. Now, this looks really cool. I'm happy with how this turned out. Again, don't forget, guys, you can bump up your density to whatever value you want, right? And then when you go to play everything back, you can get the result that you're looking for. I actually think this looks like way cooler just like in this view right here. Anybody else? Now, like, I just thought, like, that actually looks like semi-realistic on how the smoke, I mean, if there were force fields in real life, which I guess there are because we have magnetism, like, that's how the smoke might flow in real life. So, someone mentioned, how would the smoke collide with a hidden object? Well, hiding the object's the easy part. The other part is, like, baking it out. So, let's just go through another example because we are here and we have the time to do so. We started at 2:15 and we'll end at 3:15, so we have another 20 minutes, which is great. So we can do 10 more tutorials in this tutorial if we want to. All right, let's add a cube. Let's go through the motions again. We'll go to quick effects, quick smoke. The reason I like to do it that way, me personally, is because it just sets everything up for me. I don't have to add 3 different things like to set up my simulation, right? So we have our smoke right here, and someone said, how do we make it hit a hidden object? We'll use an effector. So let's just say that our hidden object was, let's use a torus because we'll really be able to see the torus. We'll put the torus at the top of the domain here. I'll just like scale it. I'll scale the domain out a bit too. Now this torus right here is going to be our object that it hits. I'm going to scale it so that it can hit around the object, but not like it wouldn't fill the inside of the object. I'll just simply add a fluid type effector. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now you're probably thinking, well, it's not a fluid. That is true, but it just works the same way. Fluid and smoke are like one and the same in Blender in terms of like how it's handled. And let's go ahead and change our cache to all, which is going to allow us to adjust some of these settings easier. Let's bake it out to frame 100. And let's see what we get. I don't know. We only know until we try. I'm going to hide this. All right, so it is working. It's very hard to see, but it is working. So let's go ahead and increase our resolution to like 100. And then let's bake it one more time. Didn't mean to save. We'll bake it one more time. It's going to be really hard to see, but it actually is working, and it is going around that shape. And to prove it, I'll go into rendered view. I'll add some lighting so that you can see that it is indeed working. All right, here we go. All right, right here. Good. Let's add some light. Scale it up, and let's go to rendered view. All right. Again, I'm going to need to bump this light up to 1,000. Okay, so do you see this little area in here? That is where it's hitting our hidden object. Now, to make this even a little bit better for you, I'm going to click on Free All one more time to free our bake up. I'm going to move this up here, and I'm going to rebake so that you can see the effect happen for longer, if that makes sense. Because the smoke took some time to get to the top. Now the smoke's going to take less time. If you bake a viewport preview, it could be a great start for some mobile game VFX. Yup. My biggest struggle with smoke sims is getting a shader that has a nice shape and volumetrics, but not completely opaque. Yup, and that's kind of where you get into color ramps, noise textures. You can like cut out part of the density with a noise texture as well. And I can show you guys how to do that. It is tough. The shading is kind of a pain in Blender sometimes. Getting that correct result. All right, let's see what this looks like. Pretty cool. So you can see it's going into the middle of the torus. It doesn't have quite enough time to fill the outside, but you can see it's starting to work its way around. But this is pretty cool. Let's look at this from a top-down perspective here. So the smoke is rising. It hits the middle. starts to fill up the middle, and you can kind of see like where it's filling up the center part, and that's pretty much it. It's just a matter of hiding your object. And right here in the side, you can see that I've hidden the torus. Make sure you also click this little camera icon. That's going to hide it from render, so that when you actually go to render, it doesn't show up. And I'm going to open up my volume settings. Let's bump up the density here so you can really see what's happening. This looks really cool, right? Like we have kind of this mushroom cloud type of look here. It's being emulated from our cube. It's pushing forward. It's pushing into the torus, and then it kind of fills that space there. So you can imagine if you had a logo, you could easily fill a logo. Well, you could fill a logo up, or you could fill the outside of a logo, revealing the negative space of said logo, right? So like you could do this with Blender. Let's quickly grab the Blender logo SVG. And I'm just going to show you guys where I'm getting access to this. I typed in Blender logo SVG online. We'll download the logo kit. Let's find the SVG. And where is it? Here we go. Blender logo. I'll take Blender logo and Blender logo socket. I'm just going to drop them to my desktop real quick. And then we're going to go over to Blender, File, Import. I know you probably can't see this. Import SVG. The heck is SVG? Oh, there's. Okay, import SVG. I'll just head over to my desktop, and we'll use this one right here. And I'm going to combine all the curves. You can see in my hierarchy, they're all combined right here. I don't want them to be. I'm going to go ahead and... Actually, I'm going to delete the ones I don't want. I just want the Blender logo. So I'm going to delete all the other letters, and then we'll convert this to a mesh and extrude it. All right, there we go. I'll highlight these, right-click, join, and then I'll just go over here to geometry. This is the our path settings. I'll extrude this like that. Right-click, convert to mesh, scale it, check the mesh. Looks good. We'll scale it up so much that we can bring it all the way up here to the top. Scale it up some more. We'll bring it to the top, and then we just need to make this an effector and rebake our simulation. And we're also going to throw the other effector to the side because we don't need it. So I'll click on Free All, go back to Solid View. Where's my original effector here? Oh yeah, the torus. Okay, I'll delete the torus. I will scale this up, make sure that it is right about in the center here. I'll just make this a fluid effector. Everything looks fine. Let's try it. This may or may not work like very well, but to ensure that it works a little bit better than last time, let's scale this up and make it really flat. And this is the smoke emission part here. Hopefully you guys are following along here. I'll click back on my domain, bake all, and let's see what happens. So what should happen is that the smoke should surround the Blender logo, and we'll get a negative imprint, which is actually technically a positive. Well, it's going to look like the Blender logo. I'm not going to get into the details because I'm probably going to confuse myself here. Let's see. Plenty of people are interested in physics. That's great. All right, let's escape this and let's hide this. Very nice. All right, just as suspected, we have revealed the Blender logo. It's a little bit choppy. There's a few settings to adjust. But if we play this back, how cool is that? Look at that. And you can kind of see how you would go about doing something like that. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of choppiness on the edges here. One of the reasons for that is the mesh. Another reason is that there are some settings. I want to say they're like right here. Step rate. I think it's this one right here. Volume step rate. Let's see. Viewport. I kind of forget how to adjust this part, but there's a way to fix that weird pixelation issue. I just don't remember exactly what it is, but it is like a setting somewhere. It's being a little funky. This is another thing that we run into, right? Like I've run into this issue before and I fixed it. I just don't remember how I fixed it. And I really wish I did. If anybody knows in the chat though, let me know because I totally forget how I fixed it last time. Let's see what some questions are here so I'm making sure I'm not missing anything from you guys here. It's pretty tough to troubleshoot. Oh yeah, we were talking about the shader. Oh, okay, all right, I'll go over the shader real quick. I'm so sorry. So let's go ahead, head over to the shading tab. We'll go to rendered view. I'm going to click on my domain. You can see right now, if I zoom out, I have a principled volume, which is your standard like volumetric shader. Pretty simple. Now, our density attribute right here is how dense like the smoke is, right? Like how many particles per inch or whatever the formula is. Now, the key here is that we can plug in some different things to this. So I'll just type in noise texture, right? And I will go ahead and add a color ramp. Now, what we're going to do, oops, color ramp. Okay, I'll add a color ramp. Sometimes I think way faster than like I actually do. Is anybody else like that? Like I'll think like I already did it in my head, but it hasn't been done in real life yet. I'll plug the color into the density, and you'll notice we get some really weird results here. The way to fix this is we can crunch the values here, right? Right here, let's do this. We can crunch this and we can raise the scale of our noise. I'm sorry, I think is it density attribute? No, hold on. Might be color. How did I do this last time? Again, forgetting what I did. Oh, do we have to click 4D? That might be it. Anyway, there's a way to get it to be less dense. Oh, maybe it's multiply. Hold on. Multiply. There we go. I think I did it. Hold on. Let me see if that worked. That didn't work. Okay, we'll have to look into this a little bit more, but there is a way that you can actually like basically make it look like parts of the fog are there and parts of it aren't. Like basically a 4D noise texture. One more request. Fill the logo with the smoke sims. Filling a logo. Yeah, so believe it or not, it's a little more complex to do that, but I'll show you how to do that. And this is another reason why I always suggest Flip Fluids, because Flip Fluids is so great. We'll just go ahead and save this. Actually, I'm not going to save this one. One of the reasons I like never save my projects, like the big ones that I'm doing like tutorials on, is because I always want to challenge myself to be able to recreate them. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but like I should know it well enough to be able to recreate it again, right? Like that's how I challenge myself in Blender. Like if I can't recreate it, then I don't actually know how to do it. Maybe I'm being a little hard on myself, but that's the way I do things. All right, so we want to fill a logo. In this case, let's just go ahead and let's add our quick effect. I'll add quick smoke. Option called dissolve. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, dissolve. That sounds right. Sounds like you could dissolve it, like you can make the smoke dissolve over time. So let's just make sure our smoke is working. It is. We're good. And now we need an object to fill the smoke with. So if I remember correctly, all you have to do is place your flow object inside of the collision object. I'll make this cube right here. Make sure you guys can see through this. The cube on the outside, I'll make this a fluid effector. However, there is one big thing we have to do here. I'm almost positive we have to flip the normals. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to go to mesh normals flip. So everything's like facing on the inside rather than the outside. And I'm pretty positive this will work. Let's find out. I'm going to switch my type to all for my bake. I'll just bake it out to frame 50. And let's just see what happens. I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work. And it did not. And the reason why is because I have no idea. Is planos. Hold on. There's one more setting. Unclosed, no, it's effector. Let's adjust the surface thickness to 1. And let's try this again. I'm going to raise the resolution just a little bit here. You want to see Flip Fluids in action? That's a whole nother thing, my friend. Flip Fluids is kind of a pain, I'll be honest. Why is it? Oh, maybe it's my surface thickness. Let's try one more time. 0.01 for the surface thickness. Again, look at how many times I'm going back and forth. My clients will ask me sometimes and be like, why are you charging this much, whatever? It's because half the time I'm trying to fix all the problems in Blender, right? Like what the heck is going on half the time? All right, we are getting a weird issue here. I'm almost positive I was able to do this before. Another way that you could do this is you could cut out the bottom. So like this isn't normally how I would do it, but you could tab into edit mode. Let me first of all flip the normals back, and let me make sure they're actually flipped back correctly. In your overlays, you can click on face orientation. We're good. Everything's blue. I'm going to delete this bottom face. And then this should work. Don't quote me on it. This should work. Let's see. It did. Okay, it did work. Let's go back to wireframe mode. All right. No, it didn't work. All right, let's try to add a solidify modifier to this, which is going to give the wall some thickness. Right click, convert to mesh, and then we'll try one more time. I promise I'll check your comments. Hold on. Sometimes I like to solve the problem on my own. Okay, I haven't solved the problem, which happens all the time. I'm embarrassed, but face orientation, yep. I'm not sure what the issue is. I've never had this problem before. There is one more thing you could do, and that's you could boolean this cube into another object, and then you could fill that. I don't know why I'm having an issue with the effector, though. Usually I don't have any issues with my effectors here. Let me just try it one more time. It's going right through it. Really strange. Okay, that's really weird. All right, I've never had that issue, so we're going to move on to something else. Sorry, guys. I'll have to look into that. Normally, I've never had that issue with, like, filling an object. Like, it works the same way with a liquid, so I'm not sure why it wouldn't work with a gas or smoke or fire, but either way, we went over some pretty cool stuff. So we're kind of wrapping up the last 4 minutes here, so I'm just going to share with you guys some fun projects I've been working on. And then if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll make sure to answer. And we have about 4 minutes left, but if CG Cookie is watching, they can let me know. We can extend the time of our live stream a little bit with their permission. They usually have me get capped off at about an hour, but if I have, you know, if they're cool with it, we can keep going. Again, I could cover just about anything. Custom Blender starter file issue. Something ain't work. Load factory settings. Yep. Let me go into my, where is it? I have so many files that I get mixed up with all the time. Almost all of this is all Blender. Like, my computer, like, half the space is taken up, and that is because I have so many Blender files and just so many little projects that I work on all the time. Yeah, okay. Any questions, though, about anything we learned today, guys? Again, just to recap, we learned about the fluid flow. I still can't get over this project. This actually almost like this one more than the fluid. Let's mess with the lighting a little bit. That's fun. There we go. Let's intensify it a little bit less. That just looks so cool. It just looks so awesome. I don't know. There's just something about this one. Let's like see if we can make this look like polished, like a render here, real quick. Oh, I think we have a question. I've been watching some Blender tutorials, and surprisingly, I've been learning a lot. Yeah, like, and that's the thing that always surprises me too, is there's always more to learn. Like, there's always more to learn. No matter how good you might think you are at Blender, I feel like there's just like always more to learn, always. And I'm not saying I'm good at Blender at all. To be honest, I'm not that great. I just think I have a good teaching style, and that's why I do well with Blender. A lot of the time, most people are kind of like afraid to get in front of the camera. Like, I've never been that way, which is very awesome. I'm blessed in that manner, but some people might be scared to like do a tutorial because they might feel like they're going to mess something up. But like, I probably messed something up like 10 times already in this tutorial. So as long as you don't get embarrassed about it, it's all good. But you're going to get called out regardless if you do tutorials. Let's see. Deleted the cube now. Guys, don't you see my question? I am so sorry. What do you think about Jenga, FX, Embergen, LiquidGen, GeoGen? When do you think Blender will be able to use GPU for baking simulations like Jenga? I'm not familiar with those programs. I've heard of Embergen, but I haven't used it. I'm all in on Blender. That's really all I use. The other programs I use are Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, and that's really it. I don't even use Substance Painter, to be honest. I'm all Blender. Like, if I can do it in Blender, I will. Again, nothing against these other programs. I just personally don't use them. Have you already tried simulation nodes? So I've tried geometry nodes. Simulation nodes are a little bit more complex, but geometry nodes, again, are awesome. CG Cookie, can I get the green light on a few more minutes on the live stream to cover? Just see something. Can I get a couple more minutes permission for the live stream to cover some geometry node stuff? What in the world? We're getting some interesting comments in the chat. All right. I also want to solve this like kind of boxy issue because that's something that I don't know why this hasn't been solved yet. Usually, I think I just got it. Yep, there we go. Okay, that's weird. It didn't work last time. All right, does everybody just see what I just did? Right here in the volumes, right here. See that? It didn't work last time. That is so strange. Point 1, I set the viewport volume setting to 0.1, which gets rid of some of that boxiness. I still see a little bit of the choppiness, but like if we go forward a couple frames and we zoom in, hopefully that choppiness will resolve itself. Let's see. We still have some viewers on Instagram. Very nice. Yeah. All right. So it looks like the choppiness resolved itself a little bit. You guys can turn on denoising in the viewport, but I usually suggest against it because look, this is how it looks right now. And this is like its final denoising, right? So I just don't think it looks that good. Smoke takes forever to denoise. Yeah, sorry I missed your question earlier. That's my fault. So, all right, so someone mentioned geometry nodes. CG Cookie hasn't told me to hop off yet, so I may go for another 10 minutes, and then if they say something, I'll hop off the stream. All right, here we go. Can I get a let me just get a quick gauge in the chat. Does everybody want to see like a quick geometry nodes like tutorial on just whatever? We can just make something fun. I'll show you one that I was messing around with. Actually, what I'll show you guys, we can do a quick droplet generator. So like creating like surface condensation, we can go over like how you would do that. I just need to get a quick gauge in the chat to make sure enough people are interested, and then I'll do it. Someone says okay. All right, we got like one yes. Interested? Okay. Oh. Can anyone recommend me Blender animation tutorials like character animation? All that stuff can be found in CG Cookie's core. I need to drop that here. I'll just quickly shout it out real quick. CG Cookie. There it is. All right, so real quick, just quick shout out. This core fundamentals course is going to be where you want to find all that stuff. I teach on here. Just real quick shout out, and then we'll get into the geometry node stuff. Look at all these amazing creators on here that you guys can take advantage of. Mesh modeling, digital sculpting, lighting, materials and shading, texturing, animation, rigging, which was just mentioned, and then physics by yours truly, and last but not least, compositing. So all of these things are covered in the core Blender core fundamentals. So if you guys want to check that out, definitely check it out. All right, we'll just quickly go over how would we create condensation on something. Well, let's go ahead and grab something to create condensation on. I'll just go ahead to cgtrader.com. You guys can't see this because it's on my other screen, but I'm just going to quickly log in, and then I'm going to grab a model for us to download. It really doesn't matter like what the model is. You know what? I'll just make a cylinder, whatever. All right. It was giving me trouble logging in. All right, so let's say we have a cylinder. I'll just go ahead and give this a quick bevel. Doesn't really matter. I'll generate a bevel. We'll give it a few segments here, something like that. And then we'll just add an edge split modifier. And then after the edge split, we'll do subdiv. Cool. I just want to have a really nice smooth surface to work with here. I'll convert this to mesh, which is going to apply all of our modifiers. And let's hop right over to CG Cookie said, keep on rolling. So we're going to keep on rolling, guys. Let's head right over to geometry nodes. Now, this is something I just want to say, not a geometry node expert, but I'm going to teach you guys what I know. Very first thing we need to do is create a new geometry nodes, like material shader, whatever you want to call it. It's just a setup, right? It's a setup of nodes. Also, they kind of treat this like a modifier. So if you see it over here and you're like, what? It's a modifier? Yeah, really, it is a modifier. Remember, if you click away, right, sometimes this will go away. Like if you have another object, I just want to show you this because I had this issue earlier. If you click away and you're like, where's my geometry nodes? You have to be clicked on this object, and you have to be clicked on geometry nodes. So if you have two modifiers, you have to click on this geometry nodes thing or you won't see it. All right, just want to clear that up. All right, cool. So very first thing we're going to want to do, let's convert this thing to volume points and distribute some points on this. So let's go ahead and do volume. Why is my caps lock on? Volume, mesh to cube. We'll do mesh to volume, which will convert this to a volume. We'll go ahead and do distribute points in volume. My fault. We don't want to do that. We want to do, I'm sorry, mesh to points. My fault. Embarrassing. Mesh to points. There we go. Sorry. Mesh to points. Okay. And then we will do distribute points on faces. That's fine. Now we'll get something like this. So now, as you can see, we have points that are on the face, right? So far, so good. Now you're probably saying, but wait, Kenny, where's my cylinder, dude? Well, check this out. We're going to go ahead and add a join geometry node right here. And then all we have to do is we're going to take our original geometry, which is our cylinder. We're going to plug that into join geometry. And now we have our droplets and we have our cylinder, right? So far, everybody following along? Good. Okay, so this is going to get complex fast, kind of complex. So I'll try to make sure that you guys can follow along as simply as possible. Now, very first thing I'm noticing is that, okay, these points are not very random, right? So we can fix that very easily. Once you distribute your points, we can do multiple things with our points, right? You can go ahead and you can transform your points and translate them or rotate them. In this case, I want to do, hold on, let me just type in points. There we go. I want to do, which one? Instance on points. And then our instance is going to be whatever we want it to be. It could be a cube, it could be a sphere. In this case, I want it to be a sphere. So I'll type in UV sphere. I will plug that into our instance. And now there's all of our spheres. The only problem is they're huge. So let's knock down this radius to 0.1. That's a little more manageable, maybe even 0.02. Okay, so let's pretend these are water droplets. There's one big issue that I ran into when I tried to do this. If we go into wireframe mode, you'll notice that the water droplets are complete spheres, but we don't need them to be. So I'm going to hop back into solid view. Also going to do this so you guys can see a little bit better. So when we're in solid view, another cool thing we can do is we can actually use a Boolean operator. And I didn't know you could do this until just the other day. I'm going to use a mesh Boolean operator, and I am actually going to plug this into the second slot and our geometry into the first slot. Let's see if it lets me do this. There we go. Geometry is going to go into the first slot here. And what that's going to do is it's going to cut our spheres in half. So all the spheres that are on the outside, it's going to cut them against the surface. Or it's going to crash Blender, whichever happens first. We're about to find out, though. My 3070 really can't handle this. This is like basic. I could do this in my brain. This is easy. Super embarrassing. But once it works, you'll be like, this is really cool. Said, thanks, CG Cookie. Awesome. Any day now. Sorry, guys. This usually doesn't happen. All right, we might have to restart. It's okay. Oh, yep. Yep. So as you can see, this technique is flawless and nothing goes wrong with this technique. Get out of here, bud. Blender, I'm so sorry, but we're gonna have to X out of you. Meanwhile, Chrome's sucking up like 800 gigabytes of RAM. All right, we're gonna do this one more time. I'm gonna quickly go through it this time. All right, we'll just add a cylinder. Let's keep things really simple this time. We'll just create a new document, blah, blah, blah. We'll do mesh to points. All right, and then we'll do we'll do instance on points. All right. Okay, and then we'll just quickly add a sphere. We'll make that our instance. We'll change it to 0.02, make them smaller. And I'm also going to give this a couple of loop cuts there. There we go. All right, so a couple of loop cuts, and then we're going to do distribute points on faces. Okay. And then we will rejoin the geometry at the end. Someone, yeah, Blender did crash. Thanks a lot, Blender. Embarrassing me, bro. All right, go ahead and realize these instances. So I didn't do this last time, but I'm going to save this real quick. That probably will help. So when we realize the instances, that's going to make all of those spheres like real, if you will. So we're going to go ahead and quickly realize those instances. And then we'll do our mesh Boolean operation after that. And I'm going to save real quick because if this crashes again, I'm going to lose it. All right, we will plug our geometry into here. Now, as you can see, let's go into wireframe view and see if that worked. Difference should work. And it's not working. Why? Worked just fine the other time. Let's make sure we got everything correct here. I think that's good. Did the exact opposite of what I wanted it to do. So it did cut the Boolean, but they're on the outside, which is very strange. So I'm just going to quickly troubleshoot that real quick. I actually have the original file of this on my MacBook, so I'm going to pull that up real quick to make sure I have the correct node set up, because I was working on a droplet generator and everything looked fine. So let's go ahead and make sure I have everything correct. Geometry nodes, and here we go. Okay, so we have distribute points on faces. Oh, I didn't even have mesh to points. Let's try that. That should help a little bit. Okay, distribute points on faces, instance on points. Let's try that. Crossing my fingers here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, distribute points on faces, instance on points. Good, good, good. Realize instances, cut the difference. We'll do float. And it's the reverse. So we're going to switch these inputs. There we go. Okay, so, and this is another reason why I hate Blender, but I love Blender. So take a look real quick. Oh my gosh, this is why I have a love-hate relationship with Blender. So now it's sort of working, right? You can see that if we tab into edit, or sorry, if we go to wireframe mode, these are being cut properly now, and they're being cut in half, which is what we wanted. The reason it wasn't working is because I didn't have the exact node setup that I had on the other part there. Yeah, we'll make more live streams in the future. But anyway, we're good. So distribute points on faces, instance on points, apologies, realize instances, and now we're going to scale them. We're going to scale them randomly. So let's go ahead and scale our instances. Oh my gosh. This is the kind of stuff that would like make any other normal person go insane, but I just keep on going. Okay, here we go. All right, we'll do scale instances. Okay, we'll drop that right in here before the realize instances. Now you could scale these all together like that, but in my case, what I did on my Blender document is I scaled the instances random values so that they're just different sizes. So I'm going to type in random value. I'll drop that node in here, and I'll just plug the random node value into scale instances. And now we have slightly different scaled particles, which is really nice. There's a lot we can do with that, but so far, like this is like exactly what I was looking to do, right? Right there, you could like stop the tutorial and that's it. But I want to take it a couple more steps further because on my other computer, this looks really nice, and I just want to make sure I have this properly set up. All right, so for our distribute points on faces, you'll probably notice, right? Some of the spheres are touching, right? Like these two spheres are touching. We don't want that, so we're going to change our distribution method to Poisson disk or Poisson disk, and then you can set a minimum distance between each one. So we could set 0.1, and now they won't overlap, right? So that just basically means keep this distance between each point, and they won't run into each other. So far, it's looking pretty good, right? I'm pretty happy with this as of right now. Another thing to consider is this density max factor. Let me save this before I do this because Lord knows this is going to crash Blender. I'll put this to 20, and you can see that it bumps up the amount of particles. So if you're making your own custom shader or your own custom geometry node setup, this is something that you could mess around with to let someone customize the droplet generator, right? I mean, this is stuff I'm giving out for free. A lot of people spend a lot of research on this. If you want to make your own custom droplet generator that's better than this, by all means do it. But I'm going to keep going with what I have so far. So here's another thing we can do. Let's see. With the density factor, we can also adjust this with a noise setting. Let's see. Okay. That's everything that I have for the droplet generator. But I do want to go over something else because there's something I realized you can do in Blender that is super, super cool. I had no idea you could do this in geometry nodes, And it's sparked so many new ideas. So I really hope you guys are still watching. How many people? All right, we got 53. We're good. All right, so for the 53 people still watching, check this out. This is so cool that you can do this in geometry nodes. I'm going to do a completely new document. All right. Wow, what a surprise, Kenny. You made a completely new document. I'm just going to add in a round cube. For those who don't know what that is, it's like a fancy way of saying sphere. I'm just going to make the radius 1, give it a bunch of divisions here. If you don't have this option, it's in the extra mesh options. Shade that smooth, head over to geometry nodes, new geometry node. Now, I've always wanted to learn how to do displacement effects on objects. There's no displacement node in geometry nodes, but I found a workaround online, and we're going to go ahead and go over what that is right now. The very first thing I'm going to do is find the set position node, drop that in. Basically what this does is it sets the position of the object, like where it is, the offset of it. So if I like mess around with this offset, you can see that it will move the object around, right? Pretty simple. But you can actually use this offset to like mess with the object itself. I don't know how it works, but it just does. So all we need is we need a texture. I'll just use a noise texture. I'll drop that right here. And then we need a mix node, mix color node. Our mix color node, this is the fun part because we can check out different results. I'll plug in the factor to B, and then I'll plug in my result to the offset. Now you're probably thinking, well, that looks awful. Well, let's go ahead and add a subdiv surface here. Subdiv. Click this, add another resolution. Now check this out. We'll bump this down a little bit, and we'll mess with the scale. And look at that. We can now adjust, and we'll make this 4D. We can now adjust the W of this, and we can actually adjust real-time displacement on this. Now, in my case, I found that the subtract method was the best. How cool is that? Look at that. You can actually add displacement on an object in geometry nodes. I just thought that was so cool. And you can mess around with this mix node, and you can make this like whatever you want, more or less, whatever you want. You can adjust the roughness. What did I have over here? Detail level, you can set that to 1. And you can literally animate this, and it's just so easy to do. And when I saw this, I was like, why is no one covering this in a tutorial? You can adjust the distortion level, and of course, like the amount of displacement is basically this factor right here. And then you can try different ideas here. So you could do like color burn, which gives you a completely different result. You could try lighten, which does nothing. I think the coolest one I found was subtract, or what was the other one? Linear light. Linear light also does something cool, which is really awesome. But you can completely adjust the displacement of an object with geometry nodes. I had no idea you could do that. And this is so cool. I just thought this was so cool. Let's try another type of texture. So that was noise texture. Let's try Gabor texture, which is the new texture that Blender has added. And I'll just plug in the phase here. Again, like look at this. The scale is pretty high. Whoa! You could make like a, it almost looks like scales, like on like a dragon or like maybe another object. And don't forget, you can shade smooth with this node. Except for we're getting some weird glitches. Let's raise the subdivision level. Let's save this real quick as something we'll remember, right? If you are getting those weird glitchy edges, just keep raising that subdivision surface. Should be shading smooth. What the heck? Shade smooth. Set shade smooth. I thought I did that. Hold up. The heck? Shade smooth. All right, weird. It's not shading smooth. I don't know why. That's really weird. Anybody else seeing that? I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. We have something really cool here that we can adjust the frequency of. I'm not really sure like what some of these settings do, but I can tell you right now that this is really cool. Can you animate in geometry nodes? You can. You can animate in geometry nodes. All you have to do is keyframe the factor that you want to adjust. So if we have a texture, let's just go with a wave texture this time. And let's go ahead and, that doesn't really look good. Hold on, let me go with something different. Let's go back to our noise texture, just the easiest to explain. All right, we'll plug this in. Good. Okay, so let's say you wanted to animate this. All right, all you have to do is animate this W right here. This W is like the phase of where it is, or you can animate the scale. Let's say maybe you want to have 0 displacement. So I'll go ahead and make this up here. I'll just make this our dope sheet, which is our timeline. And then hopefully, can you guys see this? It's kind of where my face is. Let me just move my face. All right, so where my face was, this is the timeline. So at frame 1, I will hover over the thing that I want to adjust, which is the scale. I'll press I. That'll turn yellow, which means I inserted a keyframe of that value. I'll jump forward to frame 50, and I will raise the scale. And then I'll press I again while hovering over the scale. And then if I play this back, I just animated it. Looks pretty cool. Now, me personally, though, I would delete the keyframes. On frame 1, I would start the scale at whatever I want, and I would adjust the W. So I'll start the W and the scale at 1. I'll highlight both of them and give keyframes. Now at 50, I'll adjust the W to like 1.4, whatever. Now let's play it back. Now you have some movement that looks kind of cool. Maybe you want to make an abstract planet that has like waves, right? You can just press play and now you have that. And the reason this works is because we're inserting a keyframe with the value of the thing we want to adjust, which is the noise texture values. You can do this with the roughness, right? Maybe you want something to appear smooth and then it becomes rough. I could see this being super useful for like a product animation, or maybe you work for a chemical company and you want to explain how a chemical changes over time. Maybe the surface starts smooth and then it becomes rough. I mean, I can think of a million ways you could use this. I just thought this was cool, so I wanted to share this with you guys. Remember, if you do delete this, you're going to lose your keyframes, right? And you kind of lose all that work. So just keep that in mind. If you delete a node or you unplug it, you're going to get a weird result. Let's try a magic texture. I wonder what that would look like. Whoa, pretty cool. Maybe you want to create a cool hairstyle on top of your character. That looks pretty cool. Again, the factor is going to give us the amount of like displacement here, basically. So let's say you wanted to create a custom node group. You could plug the factor in to a customizable slider that your customer can use. Like if you're selling this as a shader, your customer can adjust that, right? Pretty cool. I could cover this like for like 3 hours. This is how cool I think this topic is. Really cool. And then the depth here, I guess, is the, I don't know, like the detail. Look at the distortion. That's a cool factor. Now it's not going to work perfect on any object, but I think it's pretty cool. Maybe you just want like just ever so slight distortion. And now you have an object that's got like some real character to it. Like imagine if we threw an HDRI on this real quick. Just want to see what this would look like. And we just gave this like, I don't know, like a metallic shader with a low roughness. Like now you got this really interesting looking object that we created, and we didn't even do any modeling. We just changed the displacement. Where do you start in the 3D learning journey? YouTube. That's where I started. I just went on YouTube and I typed in how to. You guys want to know the first thing I ever learned in Blender? Quick story. I wanted to drop a cube on a plane. That's all I wanted to do. I just thought the physics part of it was cool. So I looked up on YouTube how to like drop an object, or how, I don't even remember what I looked up. And then next thing you know, I see this thing fall on a plane, and then I was just immediately hooked on Blender, and it started this huge rabbit hole, and here I am now teaching it. I've got my own channel, I've got my subscribers, I've got an Instagram, and it's just like the best program in the world. But it all started with dropping a cube on a plane. Humble beginnings, but it was fun. But yeah, that's how I got started in Blender. And then anything I wanted to learn, I just looked it up on YouTube, or I just tried it out on my own, and there I was. So let's mess around with some more textures. We aim to live stream at least once a month. Yep, that is the goal. Yeah, and oh, by the way, I should probably tell you guys one of the reasons I've been so busy is because I am expecting a child soon, which is super awesome. But I've also been busy with work, college, other things like that. I have a lot of things that I'm juggling in my life. So it really is nice. We got the day off for snow today. I'm a teacher at a school, but we got the day off for snow, and I was like, this is a perfect day to just like go ahead, live stream, teach some cool stuff. And of course, when I'm not teaching, I'm still teaching. That's why I love YouTube. That's why I love CG Cookie and learning online and Blender. There's just so many things to like that we can do. So it's funny, like I still find myself wanting to teach even when I'm not at my job. So I guess I'm at the right career. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool. This is a fun one. Now, the only thing I didn't figure out how to do, and maybe you guys can find a workaround, I don't know how to use mapping and texture coordinates for our texture here, and I'm not sure how that works. But I'm sure there's a way. I'm sure there's a way. That's right. I'll be a father soon. Yep. Playing with Blender since 2 years. Never made a big project. Can you tell me about how I can turn this into a job? Yeah, maybe we can like cover that on the next live stream, and we can do like an open Q&A. But one of the things I'd suggest is like just start making projects for companies who don't want you to make projects for them. Sounds contradictory, but that's what I used to do. I would like find a random company, make a cool animation, tag them in it, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, can you make us another one?" Well, yeah, sure, but like now you gotta pay me $500, right? So it's kind of like cold calling, but you actually put the work in and you have to actually make something. So a lot of the time, if you just have cool projects on your Instagram or your Facebook or wherever you post, people will eventually notice you, but it has to be high quality work. Turning Blender into a job is very difficult. It's not my current full-time job for a reason, just because I don't get a lot of clients, as many as I used to be honest. And it's tough to like retain clients, like get a repeat job. So one of the things to consider is also like selling your shaders online. So that will help you out a lot if you're really talented in making things. Like let's say you made something like this and it was incredible and like everyone wanted to buy it. Like maybe you made something like this and you were like, this is my new rock texture, $5.99, go buy it, right? And you sell 1,000 of those, well, that's $5,000 right there, right? Give or take some fees and processing fees and like percentages that like Gumroad or Blender Market might take. But when you upload something online, if people want it and they buy it, that in itself is a business. Just make sure if you start your own business that you're doing it legally and you're operating within your state, country, region, zone, wherever you are. Make sure you're keeping track of your stuff. Like the last thing you want is to operate your business in whatever state you're in, but you're doing that in a way that you're not keeping track of your expenses and your income. Just make sure you do it legally. I only made a couple models in Blender, really trying hard to animate. Again, that's where I go back to CG Cookies courses. That's something to look into, right? Could talk about that stuff all day. I am blessed enough to be able to access those courses through their program, and I can tell you right now, I have learned so much. I even sometimes will rewatch my own course because I'll forget how to do something physics related. So like, right, like I'm not going to remember everything. So I always go back to those courses to look up things that I want to learn how to do, like lighting, texturing, modeling, rigging. Modeling is one of my favorite things. I love modeling. I'm just not great at it. So that's an area I could excel. I would highly suggest checking out the modeling portion. That is going to really benefit you guys if you're looking to increase your skill set there. Yep. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just keep experimenting. Create something that's useful for people. I'll show you guys one of the examples of something that I sell. If I can find, if it's on here. Let's see, crystal shader. Okay, here's one. I don't know if this is going to work right now. So this is, okay, that's working. All right, so this shader is something that I've sold. I've probably sold 5,000 copies of this shader. Now, at the time, when I first released it, it was like $1, or it was like $0, so I didn't really make any money. Big mistake on my part. I should have made it $1 from the get-go. You live and you learn. But I've sold a lot of copies of this. It's made me a lot of money. And the thing that I learned is you just got to create something that people want. But you have to know, it has to be good, though. It can't just be like, here's a, like I'll give you a good example. You can't just make a new project and be like this. Cube, or a cylinder. You can't be like this. Hold on. And this, I've seen this happen before. Hold on. Here's my crystal. And you can download this right now for only $1, right? If it didn't take you more than like 8 hours to create, I wouldn't even bother selling it, because odds are it's going to be low quality or something that anyone else can recreate on their own time. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll do a tutorial and then I will turn that into a shader and sell it, right? But I'm also giving the tutorial away for free. So if there's some lazy Blender users out there that don't want to follow the tutorial, they just want the shader, okay, you can have the shader, but you're going to have to buy it. If not, you have to follow this hour-long tutorial that will give you the same result, but you got to do it yourself, right? And a lot of people, almost all the time, they just don't feel like following the tutorial, so they'll go and buy the shader. I've seen this technique used more times than I can count, not just by me, by thousands of creators, right? All around the world. Everyone's using this technique. It's like, I would almost call it the lazy marketing technique. I put in the work, I make the shader, I sell it for $1 or whatever it might be, whatever I think it's worth. If they want to download it, they can. If not, they have to follow the tutorial. This is a great technique to use if you're really trying to like sell your content online. Some people might think it's bad business practice. It works. It works. It makes you money. And as long as you're not ripping anybody off, which really you're doing the exact opposite, I don't think it's a problem, right? So a lot of people will talk about business ethics, like what the right decision to make is. Is it fair to offer a tutorial but then make someone pay for something? Yes and no, but at the same time, if you're not going to follow this tutorial, that's on you, right? Okay, sometimes a render or a scene looks boring without some props. And if there's a lot of props, sometimes it looks not appealing to the eye. Do you have any solution for that? Yeah, making something look appealing to the eye. Let's just say you're not talking about realism. I'm assuming you're not talking about realism, because if you are, that's a totally different thing. Making something look appealing to the eye is a totally different conversation. That would be involving like not compositing, composition. I want to show you something. Composition, rule of thirds. Okay, here we go. I did not spell any of that right, but it's okay. Thank you, Google. So like when we talk about making something look good or balanced, like this is a nice one right here. Like we could talk about using the rule of thirds, which is going to allow you to lay everything out in your scene in a way that makes sense. A lot of the time it relies on like a focal point. Like you want something to focus on. Like what is your main subject? Like in this, I would say the main subject is the flower. In this, everything is the main subject in my opinion, but at the same time you might have your eye drawn to like certain points, right? So a lot of the time laying out your composition in a way that is visually appealing, that can come with time, right? Like you're not going to be perfect right away, but for most people, if you use these fundamental artistic techniques, you can find a way to lay out your composition in a way that makes sense and it's visually appealing. A lot of the times people will refer to the rule of thirds or the golden ratio, and most of the time you can get away with using the golden ratio to make your art a little bit more appealing. This is a really good example right here, right? We have our beach and our like ocean, but that's really not your subject, right? I would argue the subject is this mountain peak over here, or this island, whatever that is. A lot of these are fun to look at. This one's an interesting one too, because like this girl is probably the subject, but this is kind of distracting here, right? These weeds or whatever this is. So it's really interesting to look at this stuff. A lot of this has to do with like the golden ratio though. This one doesn't really follow the rule of thirds. I'm not seeing anything lined up with those thirds, but a majority of the content is in the top here, right? So this is an interesting image when you think about it. We used to look at this stuff all the time in art school and talk about like what a good composition was. This is a fun one. A really good way to put focus on your objects is using depth of field too, which is being used here. We can tell that there's no question that the cat is the focal point here, right? Not just because it's the physical focal point and everything else is blurred out, but you can just tell, right? It's lined up with that corner of this third right here. Another great example right there. Look at this one. This is so funny. This is not, I would argue this is not how the golden ratio is supposed to be used, but like this is pretty funny. So like that, I'll keep that up there for a second. Oh my God, that is so funny. Hold on. Golden ratio. Yep, there's the golden ratio. This is a fun one right here. The Twitter logo. Except for what's Twitter, because it's x.com now, but all right, well, I think we've talked about a lot, guys. Our live stream has been going on for 93 minutes. I think it is time for me to hop offline. I'll answer any last-minute questions real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. I think we did a great job covering all the different topics today. I'm just going to leave this thing on loop for the last part of it. Just so you guys, if you want to, this was initially what we had signed up to work on. So I'll leave this on my screen. If there's any questions about this or anything else physics related, now would be the time to ask those things. Just because, again, 93 minutes is a long time. I should probably get some water and some food at this point. Yeah, live streaming can be kind of exhausting. But I think this came out great. I'm really, really happy with this result. And hopefully you guys enjoyed all of the 10,000 tutorials that we covered. I'd love to see more live streams soon. Yep, I'll definitely try my best to do more live streams soon. It is just it can be a lot with like my current schedule with school, but hopefully some time frees up soon before this baby arrives and we can keep doing some live streams. Or maybe the next live stream the baby will be there. Who knows? Thanks for all the info. Take care. Yep, no problem. Any other last minute questions that we have, guys? I can see my my stream is quite delayed. I don't know why it's that delayed. Any other additional questions? Give you guys some time. I know that the stream is like, I think at least 30 seconds delayed, which is really weird because I don't know. I thought it would be fine. All right. Well, if you guys do have additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comments of this video. If not, you guys can reach me at Kenny Phases on Instagram or YouTube. I'll try my best to help you guys out if you have any issues with this like tutorial. Just make sure you follow all the steps accurately. Don't miss anything. Otherwise, it might not work. There's a lot of little steps here. Definitely check out the CG Cookie course. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Yep. The best add-on, probably Flip Fluids. It's got to be the best. I mean, you can't really beat an add-on that gives you realistic fluid simulations in Blender, especially for the price they're asking for it. That's probably up there. And of course, I'll probably promote a couple of my own. I have a couple shaders online. I won't mention what, but I have some that I think are extremely useful as well for a lot of projects. I don't have a Discord server at this time, but you can message me on Instagram. Yeah, the CG Cookie course is by far the best you're going to find. Just some incredible creators on there, as well as the content that you're getting for the price that you're paying. It's by far worth it. It will just excel you into that next level of Blender. I'm new in Blender. Any advice to start from? Just start. I know it sounds stupid, but like just start, keep creating, and every day try your best to like learn something new. If you can watch like a tutorial a day and follow it to completion, then you will learn a new topic every single day. You'll get hands-on experience with Blender, and like, I don't know, do Blender like 2 hours a day. I mean, you'll really advance quickly. Also, learn your shortcuts. Your shortcuts are going to help you a lot, and they're going to help you get work done much faster, much faster. That would be my advice. I'll wait for any additional questions because I know some people may still be typing here, so I'll hold up a sec for you guys. Wow, 97 minutes. That might be a new record. All right, guys. I am not seeing any additional questions, so I am going to stop the stream at this time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great